everybody, welcome back to the Crumbs and Doilies store in Soho. It is me, Sally, and
me, Dane.
woohoo! We are back together because we're going to show you one of our favourite cakes. It's perfect for summer. It is the raspberry white chocolate cake. It is a Crumbs and Doilies classic. It is so awesome. So we've got 4 layers of raspberry ripple sponge, which I know a lot of you have been asking for a raspberry ripple sponge, so we are going to give you our secrets right now. And then we've obviously got some really smooth white chocolate buttercream. We're going to decorate it so beautifully. We're going to do a white chocolate drip, as well as loads of meringues and chocolate truffle decoration. So we have got loads to get on with.
And don't even think you're going to get past this part of the video without subscribing, because if you're not subscribed to the channel, that means you're not part of the Cupcake Jemma family. So get to it, because the button is right there.
Yes, and there's a little bell next to it. You want to click that as well, because then you'll get a notification every time we upload a video. And if you like this video, then please give us a thumbs up, because the more likes we get, we know what kind of videos you guys want to see. So,
yes.
I'm going to crack on with this raspberry ripple sponge. Dana will be back to show you the white chocolate buttercream, so scram. All right, guys, so this is super simple. We're going to use the traditional creaming method for this, and we're going to start with creaming together 625 grams of both really soft unsalted butter and caster sugar. So I'm using my stand mixer with the paddle attachment, and we're going to start by mixing this on a medium to high speed for about 5 minutes. But what you want to do is just look at it and wait until it gets really pale in color and it'll be kind of fluffy. So you can see what I mean by pale and fluffy. It looks almost white, to be honest, and the sugar has started to dissolve, which is perfect. And at this stage, we are creating loads and loads of air, so do not give up on this. You just want to keep it whipping, because this is how we get a nice light, airy sponge. So next up, we're going to add 10 eggs, because this is a big cake. So I'm going to crack 2 at a time. I'm going to add them to my mix, and then I'm going to beat them really well in between each addition, because we want to keep on adding air. So at this stage, sometimes your mixture can look a little bit split, a little bit like scrambled egg, but don't worry, as soon as we start adding flour, it's gonna all come back together. So speaking of flour, we've got 625 grams of self-raising flour that I'm actually gonna add in 2 halves, because there's quite a lot and I don't wanna collapse all of this air. So I've already sifted this, and we're gonna add half in. And I'm going to put my mixer onto the very slowest setting, because we just want to fold this through. We don't want to knock out any of that air. And whilst the mixer is still running on the slow speed, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of whole milk into the mixer. And as soon as it's combined, we're going to stop it and finish it off by hand. We just want to make sure that everything from the bottom and the sides is fully combined, and this is looking gorgeous, so silky. So now it is time to ripple and put into our tins. So I've got 4 9-inch cake tins here, because we're going to make this an 8-inch, so we're going to trim off the caramelization from the outside. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some tin spray in, which you can get this from CupcakeJemma.com, and it is probably the most time-saving thing that you can buy, because we used to do all of our tins with butter and flour, and it took an age. So once you've sprayed those, what we're going to do is grab our raspberry goo. Now for this cake, you're going to need a lot of raspberry goo, and if you haven't seen how to make it, I'll put a proper full-on video in the description box below. But essentially, you just want to whack some raspberries and a little bit of sugar in a saucepan over a high heat and get it bubbling and boiling away. And then you want to drop it down to a simmer, and once you've had it on for about 10 to 15 minutes, you want to take it off, strain it, and once it's cooled down, you have got this, the most incredible, naturally, beautifully pink raspberry sauce. So we need to ripple this through our sponge, and I like to do it little bit by little bit so that we don't end up with like a murky grey kind of mixture. So I'm going to put in about 2 or 3 tablespoons. I'm just going to wiggle it over the top of my batter. I'm going to grab my spatula. I'm going to do a few swirly whirls, And that's it. And then gonna load up one of my tins, because this way you're gonna get these like massive pools of delicious raspberry sauce, which is gonna go all sticky once it's baked. And then we'll grab our offset palette knife and we'll spread it out. So then you just want to keep doing this, adding a little bit of raspberry gouda batter, swirling it through, and then filling up all of your cake tins. And I know it doesn't look like they're very rippled right now, but that's only because we smoothed out the top bit. Honestly, when we trim it later, you will see those gorgeous raspberry ripples. So now they are ready to bake. So we've got the oven preheated to 170 degrees C, and we're gonna pop these in for somewhere between 20 to 25 minutes, depending on your oven. So I'd always check them after 20. You wanna put a skewer in the middle of each and every single tin, because they might be a little bit uneven. When they come out clear, they're done. If they're a little bit gooey, then leave them in for another minute or so. So I'm gonna do that, clean up, and then Dane will be back to show you the white chocolate buttercream.
Let's get to making the white chocolate icing. So I've got 320 grams of cooled melted white chocolate here, and to my mixer I'm gonna add some really soft butter. I've got 500 grams here, unsalted, going straight in, and we're gonna get that whipping on a high speed until it's nice and pale and fluffy and all whipped up and nice. Right, this is a lot paler than when we started. You can see here it's nice and white and whipped up, and that's because it's got a lot of air in it, and that's what's gonna make our icing nice and smooth and silky. So next we're gonna add some icing sugar. Here I've got 730 grams. I'm just gonna add it little bit by little bit, because it will go in a cloud dust if not. All of our icing sugar has been added, so you see I added it in 2 halves, mixing it on a slow speed to start with and then cranking it up to a high speed. But first, before we add the white chocolate, I'm just going to take a little bit out for the decoration for the bottom of the cake, which will be a raspberry band of icing. So I've just got a tiny amount in a bowl, and some of the raspberry gouda that Sally had earlier, I'm just going to put a little spoonful in there, and we'll give it a little mix around just to make a nice pinkish raspberry icing. Nice, so that's all done, and then next I'm going to add all of my white chocolate to the icing. This has been whipping for a couple of minutes. Now for the final stage, we're going to add some whole milk. Now this will depend on how warm it is where you are, but you just want to add a little bit at a time. You're looking for a really smooth, spreadable consistency, not too sloppy and not too firm. The milk and the white chocolate has been added and the icing is ready. So I'll show you what it looks like. It's really smooth and whipped up, and it's holding its shape. It's not falling off the spatula because we want to be able to ice the cake with this. We don't want to put it in the layers of the cake and have it slide and slosh around. This is perfect. You can store your buttercream at room temperature for around 2 to 3 days in a Tupperware container. And I'm just going to leave mine like this because we're going to use it right now. The cakes are nearly done. We'll take them out, leave them to cool, and then we'll get trimming and filling.
Okay, the cakes are out, they have cooled down. It is time to trim, fill, and crumb coat this beautiful cake. So we were gonna do this as a 4-layer cake, but we've actually just decided to do it as an 8-layer cake because 8 is better than 4.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you how we're gonna split a sponge in half. So first of all, we're gonna trim off the top like we normally do using the leveler. Now I've got mine set to 6, but I just like to see what's gonna take the least amount off the top. So we're gonna do that first. Just gonna put all the offcuts in this bowl because remember, you can make really great cake truffles, balls, pops,
yeah,
whatever you want to call them. We'll put a link to a really fun video that me, Dane, and Nikki did like a few months back.
Yeah.
You can make really cool, fun things with these. Now, what I'm gonna do is take my leveler down to the lowest setting, like so, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing again, and you'll see once we have done this, that now We got 2 layers, not 1. All right. So I'm lastly just going to trim off the very edges of this cake because we baked a 9-inch and I want to take it down to an 8-inch because we like to get rid of all the caramelization. But of course you do not have to do this stage at all. And that is it. There are our first 2 layers of raspberry sponge, which I am now going to pass over to Dane. So I'm going to keep doing this and he's going to do the fun
layer
bit.
them up. So I've got my small cranked offset spatula, and I'm just going to get a little bit of the white chocolate icing that I just whipped up just then, and I'm going to put the first layer of cake slap onto the board. And you can do this on a cake board, you can do it on a plate. We've got a nice marble board here, so it's nice and firm, and we're going to alternate the layers of this. So we're going to alternate with raspberry goo and white chocolate buttercream, and I'm actually going to start with the raspberry goo. So dollop straight in the middle, and then spread it around with the offset spatula. I've got 2 offset spatulas because we're in the bakery and we've got lots of utensils here, but you can always just wipe your spatula in between so you don't get bits of raspberry goo in your white chocolate icing and vice versa. So that one is done. Now for the second layer. And when you're stacking, guys, just make sure that you're stacking it nice and central. So give it a little look from time to time, because you don't want to build your cake and find out it's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That wouldn't be good.
Unless it was actually like a cake replica of the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah, then it would be perfect.
It would be very impressive.
Cool, so the next one, I've just got some white chocolate buttercream, just put a small dollop in. I hadn't put as much as I would do if we were doing a 4-layer cake because we're going to be building up this with 8 layers, so it will be quite a lot of filling. And if you've got too much filling, it will become a little bit too just unstable and it might slip and slide around. So we want to try and prevent that as much as possible. And we'll just step and repeat and go with the next layer and then raspberry goo and so on. So that is the final layer on. Now we're just going to do a crumb coat, which is going to lock in all of the crumbs so that we don't get any crumbage in the final layer. I've just got a straight edge palette knife and I'm just going to take my white chocolate buttercream, and I always like to get it down the whole length of the palette knife. Just makes it easier because you can go all up the side of the cake. And we'll just plonk it straight onto the side, just moving gently back and forth. And I always like to scrape off the excess buttercream with the crumbs just on the sides so that you don't get it all in the main bit of buttercream. So now that's all covered around the side.
I was just going to say that if you're not a pro at icing a cake, like clearly Dave Pemberton is, like he just did that in like the speediest time, we'll put a link to our playlist of Tuesday tips in the description box below, and we've gone into like loads of detail about how to crumb coat and stuff your cakes for like a bit more like in-depth.
Yeah, I just kind of whipped it around there. But once you've done the sides, just pop a little bit on top, and then I've got my small crank palette knife back, and we're going to smooth that out. So once it's covered on the sides and the top, you'll get this kind of overhang, which we're going to solve with our cake scraper. And I'm just going to put it vertical, get my positions correct, to the cake and just spin the turntable around. It is really handy to have a turntable. They're pretty inexpensive, so I definitely recommend getting one because it will make your life a whole lot easier and it will solve the whole plate on upside down on a bowl situation.
We've actually got some really great turntables and scrapers and palette knives and everything on CupcakeJemma.com. So if you do want to kind of take your cakes to the next level, head over there and get yourself some tools.
Yes. So I've gone around once and I had to just top up the buttercream a little bit where the cake had shown through. But once I've done it all around the sides, I'm going to go in on the top and just keep my cake scraper kind of at a 45-degree angle and just cut into the sides here. And that is it, a few swipes and we've got a smooth top ready to go into the fridge.
Yes, and we're going to leave it in the fridge for kind of minimum half an hour, but you can leave it up to like 2 hours if you wanted to. We just want to get it nice and firm so that we can add a nice smooth top coat, which we're just going to do with some white chocolate buttercream. So into the fridge.
Yes. Our cake is out of the fridge, it's nice and top coated, it's smooth, it's chill, and we're going to get on with some decorating finishy bits now. So I've got some meringues here, some little meringue kisses which we made. You can find a recipe to the meringue that we used
down below, in the description box below.
Yeah. And all I'm going to do is dip them in some white chocolate that has been melted and straight into some freeze-dried raspberries.
So beautiful.
Yeah, nice.
Classy, real classy.
Very classy.
Right, so whilst Dane is getting on with that, I am going to add a little bit of decoration to our cake. So remember the raspberry icing that Dane made earlier? We're going to add a band around the bottom half of our cake, a little bit like we did in the Biscoff cake a few months back. So using the little cranked palette knife, grab your buttercream and very gently pull it across the cake. And now I don't really want this to be nice and like straight and even. I want it to be a little bit wiggly. The one thing you want to watch out for is that you don't get too much buttercream like up on this part of your palette knife, because then it will go onto this part of your cake and it will look a little bit messy. It's looking pretty.
Very pretty. So the next bit of decoration is these white chocolate balls. So all we did to make these is melt some white chocolate and pour it into a small mold, and then we leveled it out with a palette knife, popped it in the fridge to set, and then popped them out. And they are these nice, smooth white chocolate balls. All we're going to do here is I've got some gold leaf, and with a tiny paintbrush, I'm just going to take a little bit very carefully because it will just float and stick everywhere, like this, and just pop random bits of gold leaf onto each ball.
And I am going to add another band onto our cake. This time I'm just going to use the last of our raspberry goo. This is a little bit harder because obviously it's very sloppy, so just a tiny bit at a time. And we're just going to spread it about halfway up our raspberry icing. Okay, now before we put this in the fridge to set, we're just going to add a white chocolate drip, obviously. So we've just put the leftover melted white chocolate into this bottle, but you can use a piping bag. And I'm just going to drip it all around the edge. And once you've done the drips, I like to do a little kind of barrier around the edge so that when we fill in the center, we don't accidentally knock our beautiful drips that we just made. And then I do this, which is incredibly artistic, you know, like
abstract.
Took me years to perfect this skill. Imagine if it all just set right. Anyway, then grab your palette knife, very carefully spread it all out. And then we're just going to pop this in the fridge just for a couple of minutes just to set it, and then we'll put our decorations on top. I don't want to pick it up.
You can do this.
Okay, I can do it. I did it. Okay, so now it's just firm enough to touch so that it's not going to kind of, all the toppings are going to fall off or anything like that. So I am going to do, I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a little blob of our leftover raspberry icing, and on top of that, I'm going to put one of these white chocolate balls, and then next to that we're going to put a meringue. So I'm just going to use a little bit of buttercream just to stick that down.
Yeah. And while Sally does that, I'm just going to add a little bit more gold leaf because didn't have enough already. It needs more gold leaf. Just on the bits of buttercream around the edge here, not on the raspberry cake.
I think it looks really special.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Fit for any occasion.
Yes, just like this occasion.
For eating.
Yeah! I mean, we've got to cut this open, haven't we?
We do.
Okay, shall we leave it on here? Yes.
Yes.
Let's leave it on here. Let's get some large plates, because I want a large piece.
Yes.
You going to do the honors?
Sure, why not?
Oh, bye, cake!
Bye.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Look at those layers. It looks incredible. I love doing like different fillings for your layers because then you can really see how many there are.
So pretty.
Oh, I think I got it up my nose.
I know.
Look how big your slice is. This is not fair. Like, what the hell?
Listen, I'll let you have some more, but first you have to taste it.
Okay. Here we go.
Raspberry cake is my favourite. And there's a debate going on the other week with Nikki about whether you like fruity or chocolatey. This has got both.
This is definitely both.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And white chocolate buttercream is so smooth.
Yeah.
And even if you're not like a massive white chocolate fan, it's really nice. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't like white chocolate all that much. I know you do.
I love it. Eat it by the handful. But this is kind of sweet and a bit tart from the raspberry, so you get the best of both worlds.
It is the perfect combo.
Yeah.
And it is like quite summery as well. And I'm also quite impressed that we managed to make this because it is sweltering.
It is very hot in the kitchen today.
Sam is like dripping with sweat.
Yeah.
We're trying really hard not to drip with sweat. The cake is still standing. Let me show you this. Are you ready? Beautiful or what?
Yes.
And you can absolutely, definitely make this.
Yeah.
We've put loads of description videos in the description box below, so you can like see all the hints and tips how to do every single part of this cake.
Yeah.
And loads of tools, so head over to CupcakeJemma.com as well.
Yeah, so there's no excuse not to make this cake because we've given you everything that you need to make this cake.
Everything. And also, please do share your photos with us on Instagram. We love seeing your cakes. Like, you make the cakes so much, particularly that Ferrero Rocher cake and the Biscoff S'mores cake.
Yeah.
We are always getting
So
sent
much.
photos.
Yeah, a toasted meringue is just beautiful.
Oh, so beautiful. So make sure you tag us and use hashtag CupcakeJemma as well so that we can all see them and share them. And remember, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you want to see some more cakes, then please do give us some ideas in the description box below because we want to know what you want to see on this channel.
Yeah. It's time to eat more
I
cake.
know. Bye guys, we'll see you next week.
Bye.